Allow me to introduce myself. I am Julia. I am 47 years of age. I have been in a marriage for nearly 2 decades. Our family consists of 2 children, now adults, each carving out their own paths in the world. On the surface, my life appears to be quite satisfactory. My husband possesses a gentle spirit, a dwelling that exudes comfort, days that unfold with a calm and unwavering rhythm. Yet, if you were to inquire about the emotions that dwell within me, I would describe it as devoid of content. There was a time when I was different. In my youth, I brimmed with passion. I created a painting. I composed. My heart danced to the rhythm of music, captured moments through photography, and found beauty in art. All the elements that infused life with vibrancy, color, and vitality. I once held the conviction that I would find a purpose for it. I would forge my own path, embrace my passions, and claim my life as my own. Yet, at some point in the journey, I allowed everything to fade into the distance. I found myself captivated by love. I entered into matrimony. I embraced the roles of a wife, a mother, a caretaker, and a dependable individual. And gradually, silently, that alternate version of myself slipped away. She lies beneath the earth. The girl who would spend sleepless nights immersed in her art, driven by an indescribable feeling within her. A woman unafraid to desire more. I concealed her beneath a mountain of laundry, grocery lists, carpool schedules, and the veneer of polite dinner conversations. My husband, Michael, is a kind soul. He puts in a great deal of effort. He maintains a calm demeanor, never allowing his voice to rise. He recalls the day I was born. Yet, he remains oblivious to my presence. Not as he once did. This is not the image I wish to project. We have evolved into allies. We discuss the intricacies of bills. The topic at hand is the weather, concerning our dinner plans. Yet, the subject of us remains unspoken. It's been ages since he gazed at me as if I were still the woman who captured his heart. That was the state I found myself in, silent, detached, merely existing when it occurred. When he entered my world, Adrian, an invitation arrived, one I nearly brushed aside. A former college companion reached out to me regarding an art exhibition taking place downtown. "You ought to join us," she penned. "It will evoke memories of times gone by." I gazed at the message, and my initial impulse was to decline. It had been years since I last set foot in a gallery. Seemed unfamiliar now. A realm that felt foreign to me now. Yet, deep within me, a subtle, persistent longing whispered an affirmation. That Saturday I made my way there. The gallery, modest in size, was nestled on a serene street. As I entered, I was welcomed by gentle melodies, subdued lighting, and the serene murmur of conversations held in hushed tones. Images adorned the walls, far from the polished, flawless visuals that grace the pages of magazines. These were unrefined, authentic. They seized an essence that transcended mere appearances. They encapsulated emotions. I strolled leisurely, taking in the details of every frame. For the first time in years, I sensed a flicker of emotion awaken within me. A brief glimpse of the woman I once was. And then, I came to a halt, before a single photograph. A woman older, much like myself, sat by the window. Her expression lacked a smile. Yet her eyes, they brimmed with an indescribable essence. Yearning? Remorse? Perhaps a combination of the two. I found myself unable to divert my gaze. "Is that one to your liking?" A voice emerged from the shadows behind me. I pivoted. It was at that moment that I laid eyes on him. Adrian. He appeared to be younger than I had anticipated, perhaps in his mid-30s. He stood tall, dark hair brushing softly against his eyes, exuding a quiet intensity that drew attention. His stance held a certain gravity, an unspoken story woven into the fabric of his posture, calm yet attentive. It felt as though his gaze was truly fixed upon me. "Yes," I replied at last, casting a fleeting look at the photograph. "It resonates with a sense of truth." A faint smile graced his lips. "That is the essence. I capture images not to enhance beauty. I use them to create an authentic appearance." A moment of silence lingered in the air. Then he reached out his hand. "I am Adrian." I captured that image. For a brief moment, I paused before extending my hand to meet his. "Julia," I murmured gently. His eyes held mine for a heartbeat longer than was customary. Not in an inappropriate manner. Simply intrigued. As if he were attempting to peer beyond the facade I present to the world. We engaged in a brief conversation about the exhibition. On the journey of discovering the individuals he captured through his lens. He held a conviction that a face reveals a narrative far richer than any words could convey. In that moment of conversation, a sensation washed over me, one I hadn't experienced in many years. I experienced a profound sense of recognition. Just before my departure, he uttered a remark that took me by surprise. "May I have the honor of capturing your portrait?" My eyes widened in astonishment. "Is it me?" He inclined his head ever so slightly. "That's not true," he replied with a serene demeanor. "A narrative unfolds within your features. The majority of individuals do. Yet yours. It seems as though there's a fragment of you that remains concealed. I wish to seize it." His words constricted my chest. How is it possible for a stranger to perceive that in me so swiftly? There was a moment of uncertainty. Yet, a quiet voice within me urged me to agree. I voiced it aloud. "Indeed." He presented me with a modest card bearing the address of his studio. "Take your time," he remarked. "Feel free to stop by if you'd like. If that's the case, that's perfectly fine as well." And that was the end of it. A simple exchange of words. Yet, as I strolled back to my vehicle, my mind lingered on it incessantly. Concerning him. In the way his gaze lingered on me, it felt as though there was a deeper story waiting to be uncovered. A woman who transcended the role of a middle-aged wife, fading into the shadows of her own existence. That evening, as I lay in bed beside Michael, my gaze was fixed on the ceiling above. He had succumbed to slumber, his breaths flowing in a steady rhythm. I shifted my gaze and regarded him, and I experienced emptiness. Not rage. It is not love. Merely an unremarkable, monotonous void. In that void, Adrian's words reverberated through my thoughts. "A fragment of your essence remains concealed." At that moment, I had no idea that agreeing to a mere photograph would alter the course of my life entirely. It would unearth a fragment of my being I believed was lost to time. Yet it did. I spent a week deliberating. A week spent contemplating that small white card he handed to me. I concealed it within the depths of my purse. A secret whose value I questioned. Each day, I reassured myself that I would resist the urge to go. It was merely a whimsical urge. I didn't require anyone to truly see me. Yet, in the stillness of the night, when the house lay in quietude, I would retrieve it once more. I often found myself contemplating the way Adrian gazed at me, as if there existed something beyond, something I had overlooked. One afternoon I decided to go. His studio resided within a weathered brick edifice in the heart of downtown, nestled snugly between a quaint bookstore and a charming little cafe. As I crossed the threshold, I was taken aback by its unpretentious nature. Walls of purest white, gentle illumination streaming through lofty windows. A camera poised elegantly on a tripod. A solitary wooden chair occupies the heart of the room. There was a stillness in the air. Personal. As if entering a realm where the pace of life gently decelerates. Adrian stood there, meticulously arranging his camera. Upon catching sight of me, a smile spread across his face. "You arrived," he murmured gently. "Indeed," I murmured. "I had my doubts." "I had my doubts as well," he said, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Yet, I find myself grateful that you did." A moment of silence lingered in the air. He motioned toward the chair. "Care to take a seat?" I inclined my head and made my way deliberately to the heart of the room. A sense of vulnerability washed over me. It wasn't due to my attire. I had chosen something uncomplicated, a basic blouse paired with jeans. Yet, it was the intensity of his gaze that captivated me. Not in the way a man gazes upon a woman, yet akin to how a creator gazes upon their muse. As if he were searching for something within me. "Simply take a moment to unwind," he said softly. I made an attempt. Yet, I had grown unaccustomed to being the focal point of anyone's attention. I had grown accustomed to fading into the shadows, whether at home during gatherings, or even within the confines of my own marriage. Yet, within the confines of this serene studio, concealment was a luxury that eluded me. He raised his camera. The initial click resonated gently. Then yet another. Yet he took his time. With each click of the shutter he would pause, lowering the camera to meet my gaze. "Truly gaze upon me. Share a thought with me," he remarked after a moment of silence. "Pardon. Share with me. When did you last experience the essence of who you truly are?" The inquiry took me by surprise. In that moment of uncertainty, I found myself grappling for a response. Yet none arrived. Due to my inability to recall. "I am uncertain," I murmured softly. He gave a subtle nod, as though that was precisely the response he had anticipated. He lifted the camera once more. "Excellent," he whispered. "Keep that in your grasp." Then came the sound of the shutter, a crisp click breaking the silence. An unusual occurrence took place at that moment. With each inquiry he made, unassuming, straightforward questions about my existence, my history, the passions that ignited my spirit. I sensed the defenses I had meticulously constructed around myself gradually unraveling. In that moment I transcended the label of being merely Michael's wife. I was not the woman who holds it all together. I was simply myself, and he was witnessing it. "Close your eyes," he murmured gently. I certainly did. "Now reflect on something you once had." Nothing at all. A sensation. My thoughts wandered to an unexpected place. To the girl I once was. The individual who devoted the entire night to the canvas, brush in hand. The one who trusted that love had the power to ignite her soul. The one I laid to rest. A constriction gripped my throat. Before I could intervene, a solitary tear traced its path down my cheek. I snapped my eyes open, a flush of embarrassment washing over me. Yet, Adrian's expression remained unperturbed. He gently lowered the camera and murmured, "At last you've arrived." I was at a loss regarding his meaning. Yet I sensed it. For the first time in years I experienced a profound sense of recognition. Upon completion, he withheld the photos from me for a moment. "Return tomorrow," he said. "I wish for you to behold them anew, with clarity of thought." I nodded, a peculiar sense of lightheadedness lingering within me, as if a hidden door within me had swung open, revealing something I wasn't prepared to define. That evening, I found myself wide awake in bed beside Michael, my gaze fixed on the ceiling above. He lay in slumber, his breath a calm rhythm. I shifted my gaze and regarded him, and I sensed a profound sense of detachment. I felt as though I had been transported to an entirely different realm, a realm beyond my ability to articulate to him. The following day, I returned to Adrian's studio. He had produced a single photograph, only one. As he placed it in my hands, I felt a sudden catch in my breath. I was the one. Yet, it is not the reflection I encounter in the mirror each day. Not the weary spouse. Not the silent, unseen figure who glides through existence without a trace. She was a woman whose eyes held a profound depth. A woman who appeared vibrant, and sorrowful, and powerful. In a sudden rush, words failed me. I simply gazed at it, sensing a shift begin within me. That photograph revealed more than just my image. Caught sight of me. The section I had concealed. The segment I believed had vanished for all time. Adrian observed me in silence. At last he spoke. "That is you. Not the version of you that the world perceives. The authentic self." I gazed up at him, my heart racing uncontrollably. In that fleeting instant, it seemed as though the world outside ceased to exist. Only I. He. In the stillness there lay a profound comprehension between two souls, each having glimpsed far beyond what was intended. That day I exited the studio, clutching the photograph tightly in my hands. Yet what I truly bore within me was something infinitely more perilous. The sensation of returning to consciousness once more. Upon arriving home, I carefully tucked the photo away in a drawer, in a place hidden from all eyes. Yet I found myself repeatedly pulling open that drawer, observing it closely, gazing upon her. The lady captured in the image. The woman I believed I had laid to rest. In that moment of clarity I came to understand. Adrian captured a moment. He unearthed something I was uncertain I wished to discover. Following that photograph, it lingered in my thoughts incessantly. Concerning her, the lady captured in the image. She embodied my essence. Yet, she was not the reflection of myself that I encountered in my daily life. She was the fragment I believed had vanished. The aspect I concealed beneath years of striving to be the ideal individual. I made an effort to let it go. I meticulously folded the laundry. I prepared dinner. As Michael recounted the events of his day, a smile spread across my face. Yet, each time I pulled open that drawer and gazed at the photograph, it was akin to gazing into a truthful reflection. It filled me with a deep sense of longing. 7 days later, Adrian sent me a message. I have been diligently crafting something. Additional portraits. Care to join me for a glimpse? The message held my gaze for what felt like an eternity. I might have chosen to decline. I ought to have. Yet I chose not to. Indeed. That evening I returned to his studio. The sun hung low in the sky, its golden rays stretching long and warm through the towering windows. This time the atmosphere in the space was unmistakably altered. More subdued. Nearer. Adrian stood in anticipation. As I entered, he greeted me with a smile, not the customary smile of a mere acquaintance, but a gentler, more understanding one. "Julia," he uttered. Only my name. Yet, the manner in which he expressed it, it enveloped me in a sense of being the sole individual in existence. He presented to me a collection of portraits, individuals I did not know, mere strangers. They were unrefined, lacking in polish. Truthful. Yet, he presented me with yet another photograph of myself. It stood apart from the initial one. In this moment my eyes held no sorrow. They embarked on a quest for discovery. It felt as though I was ensnared in the act of recalling something precious that had slipped away from me. In quiet contemplation I grasped the photograph. At last, when I found the courage to speak, my voice emerged softly. "I have no idea who she is." Adrian inclined his head ever so slightly. "Indeed you do," he murmured gently. "She is you. The version of yourself you've endeavored to leave behind." I gazed up at him. Our gazes intertwined. A profound quiet enveloped the surroundings. A weighty sort. Electrifying. "I'm not sure I can be her anymore," I murmured. "You already are," he responded. The space seemed to shrink in an instant. "The light is softer." The atmosphere grew denser. He moved in a fraction nearer. "Keep your distance." Just enough for me to sense his presence. He extended his hand, moving with a deliberate softness, as he tucked a stray lock of hair behind my ear. His fingers grazed my skin, barely making contact. Yet that one effortless caress. A surge of energy coursed through my being. I stood still, caught in a moment of sheer disbelief. Because it had been an eternity since anyone had caressed me in such a way. Not merely out of routine. Not deviating from the norm. Yet with purpose. With mindfulness. "Adrian," I murmured, my voice quivering. "What is it?" "This we ought not to." Yet I did not retreat. Nor did he. His hand hovered near my cheek for a fleeting moment longer. Then it glided, gently, following the contour of my jaw. Unhurried. Gentle and unassuming. Simply here. Beholding my presence. Embracing the essence of my being. I am uncertain about who made the initial move. Perhaps it was he. Perhaps the fault lies with me. But in an instant, his lips found theirs on mine. It was not an impetuous kiss. It lacked desperation. The pace was languid. Soft. It felt as though we were both engaged in an experiment, one whose outcome we had already accepted as unavoidable. As he withdrew, I found myself gasping for air. He was as well. We lingered in quietude. In that stillness, every sound resonated with greater intensity. The rhythm of my heart. Reflections of my mind. This moment had irrevocably transformed everything. "Julia," he murmured gently. I gazed at him, words escaping me. I found myself at a loss for words. I was uncertain about whether I should cease my efforts, or if I were even able to. He pressed his lips to mine once more. This time I unleashed everything within me. It was never a matter of fervor. It revolved around acknowledgement. In the journey of rediscovering a fragment of my essence that I believed had vanished, concealed beneath layers of years spent in emotional detachment. He guided me to the quaint couch nestled by the window. The warm glow of the descending sun enveloped us, whispering secrets in the fading day. For the first time in years, A sense of awakening washed over me. Vibrant. Noted. In the aftermath, we lingered in quietude. He embraced me tightly, his fingers softly gliding in circular motions on my arm. Silence enveloped us, for there were no words to express. We were both acutely aware of the events that had just unfolded, and what it signified. As I finally rose to depart, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The atmosphere weighed down upon me, and I felt unraveled. At the threshold, he gazed at me, his eyes gentle yet resolute. "You need not lay her to rest once more," he murmured softly. I gulped, rendered speechless. I found myself uncertain about whether I was prepared to receive that information. That evening, I made my way home in quiet contemplation. The streets lay desolate. Silence enveloped the house. Michael sat in the living room, engrossed in his book. His gaze lifted as I entered the room. "Hello," he remarked. "How did your day unfold?" "Very well," I murmured, and offered a smile. Yet, as I lay in bed, the sensation of Adrian's touch lingered on my skin. Gentle, deliberate, as if he hadn't merely brushed against my skin. He had reached into the depths of me, awakening a part one believed was lost to time. And I understood. This was just the beginning. Following that day at Adrian's studio, I promised myself it would conclude at that point. I reassured myself that it was merely a fleeting instant, one tiny, perilous instant, and that I had the power to turn away. I could shut the drawer on that photograph, on that iteration of myself, and let it fade from memory. Yet I refrained. I was unable to. Once you experience the sensation of being truly seen, returning to a state of invisibility becomes nearly unthinkable. Within the confines of home, familiarity reigned supreme. Michael continued to inquire about my day with that distant, courteous demeanor. The house remained silent, immaculate, and utterly acceptable. Yet, at this moment I sensed an unfamiliarity within it. It felt as though I was inhabiting a life that belonged to another. I attempted to feign. I prepared dinner. A smile crept across my face as Michael shared his light-hearted jokes. I heard him speak about his job. Yet, throughout it all, a fragment of my being lingered in another realm. Once again I find myself in that studio. Once again, nestled in Adrian's embrace. In that ephemeral instant when I truly felt vibrant. Adrian began reaching out to me through text. Not all the time. Unassuming. Merely trivial matters. "I have you on my mind. Today, I encountered a painting that brought you to mind. You possess a beauty that surpasses your own awareness." Plain language. Yet they broke the stillness of my days. Much like rays of sunlight cutting through the shadows of a dimly lit room. I made an effort to hold back. I would set the phone aside, disregard the message. Yet, in the end, I would always respond. "You occupy my thoughts just as much." Before long, we found ourselves in each other's company once more. Occasionally within the confines of his creative space. Occasionally, I seek out coffee in serene spots where I remain unseen. Transcended the mere physical realm. We engaged in conversation, for an extended period, concerning the realm of artistic expression, concerning existence, reflecting on the individuals we once were, prior to the world's imposition of its expectations upon us. In his presence, I was no longer just Michael's wife. I had not yet embraced the role of a mother. It was simply me, Julia. The authentic Julia. Yet with each return home, the weight of guilt intensified. I would gaze at Michael, perched on the couch with a book in hand, and ponder whether he could read the thoughts etched on my face. If he caught the way my gaze drifted into the void, the sensation of my smiles empty. Yet he never inquired. Perhaps he preferred to remain in ignorance. One evening, while I was tidying up after dinner, Michael entered the kitchen. He lingered just behind me, his hand gently resting on my shoulder. The gesture was remarkably uncomplicated, recognizable, yet it left me untouched, and I came to understand the distance I had traveled. In contrast, Adrian. With each touch there was a deliberate weight, a purpose behind his fingers that sent shivers through me. Vibrant. He brought back memories of the woman I believed was lost to me. Yet, I found myself unable to part with her. Yet, Adrian began to crave something greater. There was something in the way he hesitated once I mentioned my departure. His eyes softened as he spoke. I don't like letting you go back to a life that doesn't see you. One afternoon, after we had shared our moments, he leaned in and whispered, Julia, have you ever pondered what it might be like if we could be open? I stood still, caught in a moment of disbelief. Indeed it is so. I had contemplated it. Yet, the thought of truly following through eluded my imagination. I cannot, I murmured softly. I possess a family. A tale of the past. I cannot simply turn my back on it. Adrian cast his gaze downward, a subtle tension forming in his jaw. I understand, he murmured softly. Yet, it doesn't simplify matters. Following that moment, a change occurred in our dynamic. A subtle unease. He never requested that I part ways with Michael. Yet, I sensed that he yearned for something beyond mere stolen afternoons. Yet, I found myself unable to offer it to him. A sense of entrapment enveloped me. Trapped in the liminal space of dual realities. The tranquil, secure existence I had crafted. And the thrilling, vibrant version of myself I discovered with him. The burden of living a double life began to take its toll. Each morning, I would rise with a sense of emptiness within me. As I stood in the shower, the water cascading around me, I found myself lost in contemplation, pondering the essence of my identity in this moment. Did I embody the devoted partner who held our family in unity? Or the woman slipping away to experience the thrill of another man's embrace? At times, I found myself contemplating the finality of it all. I would compose messages in my mind. This can't continue any longer. It must come to an end. Yet, upon seeing his name light up on my phone once more, I found myself unable to respond. I found myself unwilling to halt. One evening, Michael drifted off to sleep prematurely on the couch. I remained seated, my gaze fixed upon him. To the man I once cherished with all my heart. And I experienced nothing but a subdued pang. I came to understand that what I longed for wasn't truly him at all. It was the version of myself that existed alongside him. The incarnation of myself that brimmed with fervor, intensity, and boundless potential. Yet that iteration had vanished. Until Adrian arrived. The following day, I encountered Adrian once more. As I stepped into his studio, silence enveloped us. He merely gazed at me. In that glance I sensed it all: yearning, sorrow, a deep longing, and a swirl of confusion. I remained silent as well. I simply approached him. In that instant, uncertainty vanished. In the stillness that followed, we remained there, enveloped in quietude. I gazed up at the ceiling, my heart racing. A tumult of guilt intertwined with desire. Adrian faced me, his fingers gliding softly across my cheek. Julia, I can't bear the thought of losing you, he murmured softly. My throat constricted. Adrian, you never truly possessed me, I murmured gently. The anguish reflected in his gaze shattered something deep within me. That night, I returned home with a weight upon me greater than I had ever known. Michael sat at the kitchen table, patiently waiting. Upon my entrance, he offered a smile. How did your day unfold? Very well, I replied. For the first time, I experienced the suffocating weight of the lie. A burden so heavy it nearly took my breath away. Later, I found myself in the bathroom, gazing at my own reflection. The reflection staring back at me was unfamiliar. A stranger in my own visage. She defied the expectations of the demure spouse she was meant to embody. Yet, she was not the liberated, fervent woman that Adrian perceived either. She existed in a space of ambiguity. Someone adrift. And I understood that this moment was not destined to endure endlessly. For in the end, one realm must inevitably meet its conclusion. Yet, I found myself uncertain about which path to take. It was Adrian who brought it to a close. Not with unkind expressions. Not with fury. Yet, with a subtle sense of inevitability. On a particular morning, he sent me a text. I must see you. Once more. No explanation was given. Yet I was aware. Our paths crossed within the confines of his studio. As I stepped inside, the illumination felt gentler than it typically does. The atmosphere in the room shifted, imbued with an unspoken farewell. Adrian stood by the window, cradling an object in his hands. As he glanced my way, I caught a glimpse of it in his gaze. The gaze you cast upon another when you're etching their essence into your memory. When you realize it's the final moment. I received an offer, he murmured softly. An endeavor abroad. It is all that I have ever desired. In just 2 weeks I will be departing. My heart constricted. I understand, I murmured. He set down what he was holding and walked closer. I can't continue to put us through this, Julia, he murmured gently. I cannot continue to desire more than you are able to provide. Though tears threatened to spill, I managed to muster a faint smile. I understand, I murmured. I had always been aware. A profound stillness enveloped the space, the sort where language would merely tarnish what was already grasped. At last, he presented to me the object he had been grasping, an image captured in time. I cast my gaze upon it. I was the one, but not like the other portraits. This one stood apart. My gaze drifted from the lens, captured in a fleeting, candid instant. It possessed a certain authenticity, an unrefined truthfulness. I appeared vibrant. Yet, I bore the appearance of one who harbored a hidden truth. Naturally, words failed me. I simply gazed at it, my hands quivering ever so slightly. That's the true essence of who you are, Adrian murmured softly. The one you have hidden from the world. The one I wish you will always remember. I took a deep breath, my gaze fixed on the photograph before me. Adrian, I began, but my voice faltered. He moved nearer, delicately raising my chin to meet his gaze. His gaze was gentle, yet unwavering. You have no obligations to me, he murmured softly. Just make me one promise. Swear to me you won't lay her to rest once more. I remained silent. I found myself uncertain about the possibility of keeping that promise. He drew closer and pressed his lips against mine. The pace was languid. Hanging on. This time it's not desire that fills me, but something far weightier. Conclusive resolution. As he withdrew, he paused to press his forehead gently against mine for a fleeting instant. He took a step back. We parted ways without uttering a farewell. For it was not truly a farewell. It was merely the conclusion of something that was never meant to endure. I exited the studio, clutching that photograph tightly. I chose not to glance behind me, yet he chose not to follow. Upon my arrival I found Michael in the kitchen, brewing a fresh pot of coffee. He gazed upward, a smile spreading across his face. Greetings, he remarked. You've returned home earlier than usual today. Indeed, I responded gently. And I returned the smile. A smile he accepted without hesitation, for he never dared to question. In the stillness of the night, I found myself seated alone in the living room, the house quiet after everyone had retreated to their slumber. I retrieved the photograph and gazed at it beneath the gentle glow of the lamp. I was the one, yet not the version of me that the world perceives. Not the demure, submissive partner. She is not the woman who conforms effortlessly to the expectations of others. It was the woman who continued to yearn. Yet the yearning persisted. Yet it lingered. I placed the photograph in the same drawer as the initial one, the drawer that remained untouched by anyone else's hands. And I murmured softly to myself, I believed I had laid that part of myself to rest. Yet he unearthed it once more. Life resumed its usual rhythm after that. The identical patterns. Those familiar, hushed evenings spent over dinner. The unchanging, secure days continue on. Yet I had changed. For when another truly perceives you, the image of yourself becomes indelibly etched in your mind. In the stillness of the night, I find myself reaching for the photograph. My gaze falls upon her, the lady captured in the image. In that fleeting, surreal instant, I found myself truly awake once more. Vibrant. I shall keep that photograph to myself, never revealing it to another soul. Not due to any sense of shame. Yet it is solely mine. To that fragment of my being that endures, hidden from the awareness of others.